the media doesn't always have the best intentions, let's say.
No, no. I mean, for me, they got what was most important, which was Father Moses. He said something like, Orthodoxy isn't about masculinity; it's just normal. and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
we're not trying to post some kind of like alpha male model or something like that. Which for me was pretty much the same thing that Bishop Irenei was
Yeah,
saying as
yeah, yeah.
well. But yeah, obviously in Denmark it's even worse. Like there's something called TV2 News, and there they wrote the heading was. American men are seeking refuge in Russian churches to try and find some kind of foundation for their masculinity or their masculine
That's
identity.
hilarious. But what's funny is that they did. It seems like you'd think that journalists would know something about the Streisand effect, and if they did, they wouldn't be posting these articles because all of a sudden you'll be have all these Danish guys coming to Russian churches in Denmark. They think that they're pushing them away, but it's like the crisis that young men are facing is real.
Welcome to this conversation with Jonathan Pageau about the meeting of exploration of manhood and masculinity and the Orthodox Church, not least in the light of the recent controversy, the smearing of an Orthodox priest in the European media that's been going on this week. So for those who've been following my work for a little while, you'll know that Jonathan has been quite a figure in my journey, which started really in a secular, slightly maybe new age exploration of masculinity and manhood, looking for a foundation for masculine identity or male identity, and my journey then into the Orthodox Church and becoming an Orthodox Christian. And Jonathan's really been an incredible help for me in finding my feet in that. And it was actually after we booked this conversation, we haven't spoken for a couple of years now. It was really great to reconnect on some ideas. And just the day before the conversation, then this whole thing erupted in the European media. So it was really great extra additional recent context to be able to explore and to update. So looking forward to sharing it with you. Here we go. Jonathan, great to have you on here again.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you again, Paul.
Yeah, it's been some time since we've been in touch. But you've been an incredible large influence in my life. We met during Corona times, I believe. And maybe
I
that's the reason why I
got
was able to
COVID. I
convince you to
got
come out to
COVID.
Denmark.
I got COVID in Denmark from some people at that event. It was a wild time.
You probably got it from Father Michael, actually, who was
That's
out here
right.
with
Yeah,
us.
we got it from Father Michael.
Yeah, yeah. So, for people who don't know the history, yeah, I think you were probably sitting there crazy in Canada. Everything was closed down, but you could still fly to Denmark. And we had 120 guys or something like that out at a big event place in Denmark and held an event called the Death of the Patriarchs, which was a reflection of where I was right now. I've been working with men doing stuff around masculinity and manhood for a long time before I became a Christian. And that's morphed and changed a lot. So I'm kind of excited to be looking at what we're going to be talking about today.
Yeah, it was a crazy weekend. It was one of the craziest things that I've done, which is a lot to say, and included, but nobody's gonna believe this, but included me doing 1,000 push-ups, whatever it was, like 100 push-ups, 100 sit-ups, 100. It was like all of these. It was like 1,000 things that we had to do, and I was like this little fat middle-aged man just trying to keep up with these like 25-year-old guys. But I tried, and the guys were really like they were great about it. Like I think they had mercy on me.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we had guys from 21, 22 up to 70, I think is some of
Yeah,
the
yeah,
oldest.
that's right.
And it was a group task. So there was probably 1,000, but then the group had to do it
Yeah, we
together.
could we could trade off. Like some people could like make up if you could, because like there's no way that I'm doing 100 sit-ups, man. Like I could do 100 push-ups, like if you gave me enough time, but 100 sit-ups, man, that's nuts.
Yeah. Well, definitely, I appreciate it. I was keeping an eye on the different guys and I saw people really gave everything that they had. And I think
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that was the point of it. And for me, so I'd been working in this environment for some time, which was like a whole mix of different stuff, but we had doing some stuff that was like somewhere between self-help work, which I want to talk a little bit about today, kind of this individualist self-help paradigm that we see so prevalent, sometimes even inside the church. And it's hard for me sometimes to get out of it. But then also a lot of paganism, I guess, that was still present in that work today. And I'm trying to create a new framework and model for doing this and trying to understand, what I'm looking at is like from this optimization, almost machine optimization ideal of the individual and how to improve him as like, the individual as the autonomous center of reality somehow, and using these techniques and tools to optimize it, and often some kind of evolutionary theory involved in it. but really looking also at the human being as a lot of it's just consumerization of, how to improve the human being, and then trying to understand, which the title I'm giving it right now is like the liturgical life, which is really looking at patterns of reality that are manifesting all the time, and that we need to find ourselves our own role in our position in that, and something like that.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a great way of seeing it because, the contention that we have is that the, let's say, the framework that was developed in a kind of traditional Christian world, which included liturgical practice and then marriage or monasticism, and kind of this participation in life is actually objective. It's like an objective pattern. And if you can integrate it and understand it, it is the best way to live. It's not just like you have to live this way for whatever reason that after you die that you'll go to heaven. It really is about what this pattern gives you even today. Like it is the best way to live.
Yeah. Yeah. So part of what I've thought is like, it's been hard because coming through this work, then I've realized that a lot of my work is somehow it came from searching for an answer to like the question of what does it mean to be a man? What is the foundation of manhood? So it's a very deep ontological question somehow. And I think there's a lot of people asking that kind of question. And then what I found is like, oh, the church actually has those answers. And it's not so much about, doing more journaling exercises or any kind of therapy or something like that, but falling into this pattern. And so my response has been, well, okay, well, manhood has a good, strong foundation now as well. And then what I've been looking at is, well, how do I then work on something else, which is really asked for in the culture? And Bishop Irenei actually just wrote a great article about this 2 days ago. I think it's a response to a Father Moses article in the BBC that's like all over Europe all of a sudden. Here in Denmark, there was even a television channel that picked it up. But
Which, by the
saying,
way, it's important to say that Father Moses is not very happy with that article. He feels like they're caricaturing his position and that they're presenting him as a caricature of what it is that he really cares about. It's important to say that because,
yeah.
obviously the media doesn't always have the best intentions, let's say.
No, no. I mean, for me, they got what was most important, which was Father Moses. He said something like, Orthodoxy isn't about masculinity; it's just normal. and
Yeah,
and
yeah,
so
yeah.
we're not trying to post some kind of like alpha male model or something like that. Which for me was pretty much the same thing that Bishop Irenei was
Yeah,
saying as
yeah, yeah.
well. But yeah, obviously in Denmark it's even worse. Like there's something called TV2 News, and there they wrote the heading was. American men are seeking refuge in Russian churches to try and find some kind of foundation for their masculinity or their masculine
That's
identity.
hilarious. But what's funny is that they did. It seems like you'd think that journalists would know something about the Streisand effect, and if they did, they wouldn't be posting these articles because all of a sudden have all these Danish guys coming to Russian churches in Denmark. They think that they're pushing them away, but it's like the crisis that young men are facing is real. Like, obviously the solution isn't like alpha male Andrew Tate type behavior, but to deny that men are living an existential crisis is to not be able to see see reality. Like this something that since the post World War II has been increasing, like this idea that in some ways power is bad, that authority is bad, that the roles that males have usually played in our society are intrinsically tyrannical. Like all of these tropes have been so strong that men don't know where to look. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I think you're right. And we have a little Orthodox Brotherhood Telegram group here in Denmark, which is just growing and growing right now like crazy. And, it's taken a little bit longer to catch on in Scandinavia, I think. But now, pretty much every week, every second week that we go to church, there's just new guys showing up and women as well now as well that are coming. So things are really shifting. And we just agreed, like, glory to God for this article. Like, yeah, these journalists are trying to smear us, but for me, it's an indication that like there's like panic in the ranks of demons that they're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
because it's just really water on our mill, right? I mean, at the end of the day, people who matter are gonna they're gonna see like what this is about.
Yeah, of course. And when they come to church, they realize that it's very different it's very different from what you think the masculinists are talking about, right? It's like the priest, the most masculinist priest, let's say the most like kind of those that represent that kind of masculine energy, like Father Josiah or Father Moses, or Father Turbo, like all of these priests, if you go to them, they'll say like love your enemy, love your love your wife, love, care for you. I mean, they won't be saying, you just be this big tough alpha male at the top of the pile. That's ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So like strength is only in any way valuable when it's used for the furthering of the greater good or for the
Yeah,
service of others.
sure.
It's not anything. And yeah, there's no yeah even the most far out radical. You have all kinds of tastes and approaches, of course, within the Orthodox Church. So yeah, that's definitely becoming clear. Um, I was I was thinking about when you came to the European Men's Gathering and to this event, which we call the Death of the Patriarchs. And you kind of illustrated this pattern in a way which really just shattered, I think, the worldview of a lot of men. We had some kind of like ritual theater kind of event where guys actually participated in some kind of rebellion against the father, which we acted out in a way which was very real for a lot of them, I think, and brought a lot of this kind of like aggression towards a father figure there. And you kind of painted a picture from ancient Greek history through the story of the development of our civilization, I guess, where I think you summed it up as kind of like the idea of the revolution eating its children.
Hmm.
But I don't know,
Yeah, which
can
is
you, yeah,
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that I there was this kind of pagan spirit for sure that was still there in the group, and there was they had this kind of scapegoat mechanism theater where the certain characters during the weekend were represented as the patriarchs, and they became more and more tyrannical and aggressive and kind of dismissive of the people there, and then ultimately there was like this burning in effigy of these characters. Then there was kind of an ecstatic moment, like people would they just kind of let it out and just really went at it and kind of let all their anger out, maybe at their own father or at their own. And then the next morning, I was the one who was supposed to follow that up with a speech. And then basically I said, it's like, all right, great, you've killed the father. Now what? Like, now what? Because now, though your little ones are coming for your head, like your little ones are coming for you because you've delegitimized yourself by killing the thing that gave you your name, and I tried to show the difference between in the kind of succession of gods in the theogony that you find in Greek myths, or that you find in many other ancient myths. This idea of like this god that finally kills the primordial god and then takes power. The difference between that and the image that's presented in the Bible, and then ultimately the image of the self-sacrificial king, right? The image of actually the leader that gives himself for his flock and that gives himself to his father, and that is ultimately the more life-giving pattern, like just objectively. Because
yeah,
a lot of those guys, like the funny thing about it, I mean, it was sad, but a lot of those guys are in serious trouble because a lot of them like have children with women, and they don't even have access to the kids, like they don't, like the whole system like in this revolt against patriarchy is like literally devouring them, like they are
yeah.
being devoured by an anti-patriarchal system, and it's
The
like
most
what's
powerful kind of image that you gave that just sat with me even till as I was like thinking about our conversation today was how Zeus was kind of together with his mother went up against his own father Kronos and teamed up with them. And Kronos didn't know that Zeus was his child, right? And so it was like this combination of the son and the mother going together to take the father's balls, and then you compare that to the situation of the individual human being and the kind of the sub level of the person. And you said something which was really great. You said the problem is you don't know your own children. You don't know all of your children, and some of them can rebel against you.
Yeah, yeah.
Because the same way Zeus was
Even
hidden
in
by
your
his
own
mother.
psyche. Yeah, even in your own psyche, there are all these different aspects of you that are trying to take power, and you
Yeah.
feel, or obviously you feel that every time you have one beer too many. It's like there's all these moments in your life where you can kind of feel that these little passions kind of coming up to get you.
Yeah, so I mean, my entire life, up until until I came into Orthodoxy, had been living in some kind of rebellion against my own father,
Mm.
and that's what I became so clear to me as one of the men who I was organizing the event, but I was very much also taking in what I was experiencing, and I just could see so clearly, like, oh, my own rebellion against my father is playing itself out inside of myself, where I'm doing the best I can to create a stable, loving, lifelong relationship with a woman and create that like stability. And there's just all this drama and rebellion all the time. And I couldn't understand why it was like that. But it just kept on derailing me despite my best
Mm,
efforts. And then I was
mm.
like, oh, okay, it's because it's just a reflection of what I'm doing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, and so that's why the scripture says to honor your father and your mother, and in that context it's important to understand that it's not that you have to like them. That's the weirdest thing ever. It's like honoring your father. I mean, I like my I have a very good relationship with my father, but obviously sometimes that's not the case where someone has a very contentious relationship with their father. But the problem
Mhm.
is that if you revolt openly against your father, like I said, you're delegitimizing yourself, and you are opening the gate, like you said, inside you for all these passions to basically take over your own reason. And so you have to find a way to. And I remember I explained also the image of um of the sons of Noah that cover their father, right? That cover their father's nakedness. And I tried to explain that a way of understanding the idea of covering your father's nakedness is that instead of revolting against your father, you can notice the weaknesses of your father and then cover them with your own behavior and say, okay, my father gave me some good stuff, gave me some bad stuff, and now I will try to cover the bad stuff by, let's say, improving myself, and then taking the good legacy from my father and basically covering over the bad legacy by being a better father than he was, not to upend him, not to show him up, but to actually to honor him, to say, oh, these are good things that you've given to me, and now I'm going to try to even increase them in my own relationship with my son.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So the two models you gave, there was that one, and then there was also this guy Aeneas who was carrying his father on his back out of the burning city of Troy, and because of that, later I think his father came back and
Give
gave
him
him a vision
advice,
of
yeah, from the
Rome.
underworld, yeah,
Yeah,
because
came back.
he'd be willing to take his father out of the burning city, yeah.
Yeah. So this is really the core of what I'm calling now. I started a Substack, and I've been posting there for like a couple of months now, every week. And we're having a summer gathering here in Denmark, where it's going to be the first time actually since I've been doing those big, slightly pagan events that I'm trying to do something. I actually have the blessing of my priest to do it now, which is amazing. That's with my own history and all the stuff I've been involved in. To be putting out something that isn't an Orthodox event, but it is explicitly based on Orthodox values and
Mm,
principles. And my focus is really these four fundamental roles that I see every man goes through in his life, at least would like to go through in his life if he understands the value of them. And I think they're also kind of like a blueprint, an archetypical pattern for every single relationship in life, which is being a son, being a brother, being a husband, and then becoming a father, where the father kind of completes the circle again because the best advice I've been able to think of or come up with to be a father, it's like if you become a son of your heavenly father, like and
mm.
really submit in obedience to him, that's how you can then actually learn how to do fatherhood properly. That's at least
Yeah, that's the surprising thing because many of the modern ways of thinking seem to imply that you have to like hoist yourself up by your bootstraps and become the man that you were meant to be, like become the leader. But actually, the true leadership is born in humility. Like true leadership is born in being the right type of follower first,
yeah,
and then will accrue to you a perception of what true leadership is and how to interact with it, and then you end up becoming a good leader. I mean, the military has known that forever, right? The military
mhm,
has known it forever that the good soldier that is able to follow orders and is able to do things properly, those are the ones that get promoted to then become the leaders because they have a good understanding of the importance of order and the importance of an order that transcends them too, because when you become even if you become a father, even if you become a leader, there's always someone above you. Like there's always someone above you in the world, and then ultimately, like you said, your heavenly father as the example of something beyond you that will never go away, that will always kind of hold you responsible, you could say, for your behavior.
yeah. Yeah, so you go full circle. And for me, like my wedding, marriage, and I think I just recently become married when you came over, and
Yeah.
that's just been something where I think a lot of young men come into Orthodoxy and are like, oh yeah, no, I'm joining a church where the man has to lead and the woman has the specific instructions to submit, and so now I'm going to take the lead and do show her the way kind of thing. And the truth is that you really get humbled if you have that attitude, because it just doesn't work like that. You have to lead through love, and that means giving your life. And if you try and
Right.
just, you can't just take control, and or it's just not healthy for you or your wife, even if she does go along with that, right? And so that's been a very powerful and learning process as well. Sorry for interrupting. I just want to take one moment to tell you about our online accountability groups. So this is where men are gathering together to actually live according to the standards, the principles that they want to live by, of integrity and aiming towards a specific goal and then doing it. And the guys in these groups are supporting each other every single day with daily buddy calls. So it's a really strong system for moving in the direction that you want to move with your life. So if that sounds like something for you, then check out the link below. Thanks.
Yeah, it is an interesting thing. But it's, how can I say this? Like, it's right now we're in a moment where I think a lot of guys are reacting, to the contemporary world. They're reacting to a lot of the messaging that they've been given, that they basically have to become feminized. Um, and so it's understandable that people kind of go over the top and move towards excess. And what I hope is that, of course, people like you, people who are entering into leadership roles, priests, but different, can help guide these younger guys towards a better path, which is, like you said, which is really to lead with love and to lead with service, not in the sense that you're not a leader, but in the sense that your leadership is geared towards the betterment of those that are following you. It's like that's the whole point, right? It's like your kids are not there to just do whatever you want. You want to see them grow to be better than you. Like you want to lead in a way that will bring them into the world in a manner that will make them an even better person than you are. That's what your desire is.
And at least with my kids, I have now a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old, and it's like there's no amount of force that's going to get them to do what I want them to do, even if it's the right thing, right? So it takes a lot of patience, it takes a lot of humility, it takes a lot of death to your own ego in many ways as well to be able to do that.
Yeah.
But one thing that I'm still struggling a little bit with, and maybe you can help here, I wrote a Substack article about to be countercultural, which is something I guess we are, but not rebellious at the same time as well. Because even at the same time, you mentioned, like, our culture and the authorities in our countries are often pushing a ideology, a system of being which is very subversive and something that we reject. But we don't want to be. It's so easy to get caught up in a negativity and even a thinking we have to somehow fight against the system or something like that. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that revolution is just not a Christian, it's not a Christian pattern. It really is a kind of antichrist pattern. And so, there are ways to be rebellious when things are wrong. Like, it's okay when your authorities are acting in unjust way. There are ways to resist authority, and it's okay to do that. There are examples in the holy tradition of people resisting authority. My own namesake, Saint Maximus, who standing in front of the emperor, and the emperor saying, "Accept this theological position. It's good for the politics, Maximus. Accept it." And Maximus saying no. But then Maximus resisted but didn't rebel.
Mhm,
And so his hand was cut off, his tongue was cut out. Like, it's a horrible situation. And he didn't give in to an illegitimate authority, but he
mhm,
also didn't act as if he was now the authority. And I think that that's the danger people fall into in terms of a rebellious spirit, is to think that their rebellion leads them into their own power. Like, it's like, this is I will now be the arbiter of reality, and that's obviously wrong. It's just wrong objectively, but it's also not good for you.
Yeah, it makes me think as well of St. John Chrysostomos and his reaction. He wasn't calling for, he probably could have. He had lots and lots of supporters out in exile from Constantinople, could have been calling for, like, hey, regime change or something like that.
Yeah.
But he basically was, he obeyed. And I guess the reminder is that, well, God gives us the trials and the difficulties and the struggles that strengthen us, that we can handle. I'm not a John Chrysostom. I don't think I could handle, that kind of stuff. I'm not a St. Maximus, couldn't get my eyes gorged out, but if
But
there
in
are
the end, though, the
struggles,
the thing is that it's also, I mean, especially as Christians, like, I guess what's hard is to think, do we believe that the way of Christ is the truly transformational one? And we have an example of it. The thing is that if Jesus had died, if if he hadn't resurrected, obviously there'd be nothing. The fact that he resurrected with something, but then we have an example in the transformation of the Roman Empire of something which happened without revolution, a deep transformation, a regime change from the inside that didn't need a political revolution. And so if we believe that, then that is ultimately the best path to follow.
Absolutely, yeah. A lot of guys, some of the most like manly Father Joseph, sorry, no, Father Hans Jacobsy. He says he's like leading the Saint Pius Brotherhood and all these men and whatever, and he says, well, in many ways, the best example for a man to wants to be a real man is the Theotokos, the Mother of God, because what happened with her, well, she said, "Let it be done according to thy will," and then Christ was born inside of her, and came out through her, and so she gave birth to her, and so that's the ultimate thing to be done, and it's very much about that. It is about submission. It's about understanding what it is I'm submitting to. It's not a blind submission, but that's what I found in my own life. As I was listening to Jordan Peterson back in the day, when Bill C-16 and something came out, then I heard him saying this thing about like, oh, act as if God exists. And I thought, well, that's an interesting experiment. I could try that, and then I can go along with that. Like it fitted in my kind of scientific mindset. I've been studied, trained in all kinds of weird and wonderful postmodern theories at Copenhagen University. And I just found like it works. And the further I went into it, the more it made sense. And then at some point you realize like, oh, my idea about faith and belief was all very abstract and disconnected from reality, whereas actually action is real belief, right? That's where it really happens. And so you start finding yourself participating in these patterns that make life fall into place, I guess.
Yeah, yeah. And what you said about saying yes, in some ways to the angel that comes, this is something I think that most men will also understand is that we want, of course, to like the joy of leading is a real joy. It's something that is in some ways accessible to men. But like the joy of allegiance is one that is also one that everybody understands. It's like I think most men also desire allegiance to something that transcends them. Like, the image of the knight that promises fealty to his king is something that we all deeply understand, which is why we like sports, which is why we are attracted to that type of imagery, because we have the sense that men can join together and give their allegiance to something that transcends them. And so I think that that's something to kind of understand, especially when we need to submit to authority, that if you do it in the right way with a kind of joy of participation, then it can actually be fulfilling to you. If you're always just resisting, just because it leads you in a state of bitterness, which is not good for you.
Actually, you're putting words on something that I didn't understand it at the time so much, but many years or some years ago, then, my first act of like kind of breaking my atheist worldview was sitting down one day and kind of sheepishly trying to say a prayer to Jesus, who I wasn't sure really existed, right? And feeling like, is this weird? Am I breaking something? But trying it anyway, right? And my immediate feeling after that prayer was, first of all, like reality fitting into place, and stuff just making sense all of a sudden. And immediately following that, like, wow, that worked. That made sense. It was like, oh, this like massive load coming off my shoulders and
Hmm.
feeling like I don't have to figure it out all myself anymore. There is something actually there. The postmodern worldview, it's exhausting. It's exhausting. You collapse under it eventually, right? You
Yeah,
collapse.
yeah.
And so being able to just have faith in life, faith in reality, trust that like there's something there that's got you. At that time, I couldn't really say, oh, it's the Holy Trinity. I did pray to Jesus, right? But I still didn't really know what it was. But it was like,
Still
it's
figuring it
actually,
out at the time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, and like you said, like in some ways, these four roles that we play, we never completely stop playing those roles. Like it's not like you're one day a son and then you're one day a father. It's like even as a father, you're always a son, you're always also looking up to examples, to people that can bring you further. And so I think that that's important to always remember that. Of course, God ultimately, but even in the world, our own fathers or different leaders or different people that can inspire us. Saints act in some ways as our fathers, priests, bishops. They can inspire us.
Well, maybe, Jonathan, like we just have a couple of minutes left, but like the concepts that I've been really looking at and thinking about in these relationships are, first of all, hierarchy, because obviously they relate to hierarchy in different ways. And then the other one is desire, actually. I think desire interacts with these different things. And a lot of it is about the way I'm formulating it is like it's about the correct directing of desire, which I feel is often directed in the wrong kind of way. So I don't know, do you have anything that you can finish up or some ideas maybe that we can put in for
Yeah, I
there?
mean, I think that in all of those there you could understand desire as being a motivator for all those relationships, because when you are a son and you have a father, in some ways because you look up to the person, you want to get that affirmation. Like you're looking to elicit in them a reaction of affirmation, and so that is definitely driven by
This is my
that
son in whom I'm
by
well pleased.
yeah, and so that's what you want to hear, right? You want to hear something like that, and if you can't get that, then you'll at least get the attention, right? And so you'll rebel, you do all these things, just at least, even if it's not the attention that ultimately that I would want, which ultimately would be this kind of affectionate, loving relationship, then I'll work to get the attention no matter what. And so you can then apply obviously these types of the types of desire that you feel in relationship to a father is different, of course, than the type of desire that you feel when you're with friends. Like it's a different type of, it's a more of a camaraderie, right? And a possibility of seeing a mirror in the other person, of kind of seeing yourself reflected and seeing them reflected in you. That desire is beautiful, a kind of a normal desire that we have, because in some ways, we see our humanity in others. Like we recognize ourselves as we engage and as we give ourselves to other people. Of course, then in terms of a woman, then there's a whole other aspect, which is of course erotic desire, and also the desire to become complete, you could say,
Mhm.
in a family. And then in the father role, you have the other way around, where in some ways now you have this desire to see the best of you reproduced in those that follow you, right? And you kind of want to see it, and you can know it. Like if you're a father, you know it because you see when your child is doing things that you don't like. And if you know yourself a little, you often realize that it's usually something that's in you. It's usually something that you haven't, that's still kind of there. And so it's like it's actually a wonderful place to be, because in your children you also see a kind of mirror of yourself. It's a different mirror than in a friend or a brother, but
Yeah.
it still is a kind of mirror of yourself.
Yeah. Yeah. Great. Well, thanks so much for the input, Jonathan. It's always a pleasure following what you're up to and getting a check-in once in a while. So yeah.
Yeah,
Anything
and
else
I've
you want to
really
finish off
enjoyed.
with?
I have to say, like people don't know this, but Paul invited me to do this thing in Denmark, and it was wild. Like it was a wild thing, and I was like, Paul, man, I don't know. Like I feel a little awkward about this. I'm not sure. And you were just like, I think you had just become Orthodox. Like it was all kind of new to you, so you're still figuring it out. But I remember that you had a kind of authenticity, even at the very beginning, that was hard to deny. And so to me, it's been a great joy to see also your own kind of movement through this, and trying to kind of figure out how to be and how to act, and also connecting more and more with the church, but still keeping that foot outside to be able to talk to men in the secular world. So I have to say, it's been a joy to kind of follow your story, and I'm very happy with where you're heading.
Well, God's been incredibly gracious to both me and my wife and our children now as well. And I really appreciate the help and support I've had from other Orthodox people who've been very inspiring. I knew like when I started following you, I was like, okay, well, if I'm gonna start really like taking this guy's ideas so seriously, I need to meet him. So I'm really happy that I managed to get through and got to meet you in person. That was amazing. And yeah, so much has happened, and glory to God, it's none of it is our own value. Both, I've rarely wasted. I'm 43 years old today, and the first 36 years of my life really didn't go weren't used as well as they could have been. But now we're living out on a homestead in the countryside in a 300-year-old house, and have a spiritual father that we just gives us everything that we need. Actually, it's really amazing, and just seeing how Orthodoxy is growing in Denmark as well. It's just incredibly rewarding. I have now a godson who's even more enthusiastic than I am, and like totally like encouraging me and taking me to monasteries and stuff like that. So that's fantastic.
That's great. That's
Mhm.
great.
Thanks very much, Jonathan.
A lot of fun. Thanks.